Sean Bostic. Don has worked at Hamilton County Board of DD for over 25 years in a variety of positions in service to adults and children with disabilities. She is the director of the Office of Planning, Innovation, and Quality, a role that includes overseeing the strong family engagement, inclusion, and advocacy work. Dawn and her many partners continue to find creative and practical ways to empower families to build lasting personal networks. And Sean of Cincinnati, Ohio, is a licensed social worker and psychotherapist dedicated to serving and uplifting his community. Inspired by his late father, he learned the importance of hard work, excellence, and education as a pathway to opportunity and empowerment. He earned a Bachelor of Arts degree from Central State University and a Master of Social Work from the University of Cincinnati. Sean founded African Leaders of Tomorrow at Central State University. He also co-organized a mission trip to Accra, Ghana, where resources and support were provided to a local orphanage. In addition, Sean mentored high school students through the YMCA Black and Latino Achievers Program, helping with college preparation, personal development, and college tours. His ongoing goal is to continue helping people spiritually, professionally, and economically. So I'm going to turn it over to Sean and Dawn. Dawn, if you'd like to get started.
Well, thank you all. Anybody who knows me knows that I absolutely hate technology. And here we are trying to do this. So thank you all of you for trying to help me. So I'm not sure our videos are going to work, but we will, if we're not able to include the voices of folks through the videos, we will include their stories for you. So this is The Future Is Now.
It's the Zoom call.
Okay, so whenever we're doing work together, when Sean and I are doing work together, we want to set our intentions. And really that's what the Covenant of Support and Future Is Now is all about. So we want to learn about the Future Is Now approach to help families of young adults create a letter of intent and find community. That's what this work is about. We want to hear the voices of families and youth with developmental disabilities and their planning stories. And we want to learn about Covenant of Support as a practical, sustainable way to support personal networks. That's our work today. So this is my invitation to you, because you're coming to the room for a reason, whatever your role is. And I want you to think about a family you serve with a parent or a young adult, or a neighbor's family, or your own family who has a loved one with a developmental disability. And I want you to imagine how they might experience these questions and have dialogue. So The Future Is Now is a series of 4 sessions, and we have guiding questions, and I want you to experience that as well. So I want to say that the letter of intent is the core piece of work when you're doing the Future Is Now series. So it is literally a document that we work on together. So we have families in the room working on this together, and it captures the hopes and plans for the future in a single document. So it's in one place where we're capturing the work. It helps families and friends literally get on the same page. Oftentimes they haven't had these discussions, and it helps them create a space and a physical document where they capture their discussions. We talk about where my family member will live. We talk about what resources are available as we plan, and we talk about what support there is for the caregiver. And as Sean will talk about a little later, that's something that often gets lost in the discussion, right? So, you have people where these family members are working very, very hard, but they're not taking care of themselves. So we've learned to incorporate that in our time together. Okay.
That work? I'm still here online. Anybody here online? Should be good, you say?
Yeah, we're still good online.
Okay, that's good. Oh, much better. Oh, such a relief.
Thank you.
Oh, I've had that happen to me. Thank you. I know, right? Okay, so but anyway, it's a little bit jarring, and now I feel so much better. So Sean's going to talk about first. Again, I said we have 4 sessions. Sean's going to talk about our first session that we have with families around connecting families around hopes and worries.
So the first session, we're talking about really what you're looking for your loved one. That time period comes when you want to unable to be a caregiver expire. Unless we're going to be death someday. And the conversation can be quite daunting, but I will say that the focus is really to compel the parent or the caregiver to say, all right, this is what I need to put in place right now. So during our first session, we talk about the hopes and worries. What do you hope for your loved one after you're no longer here? What does that look like for you? And the worry is not really like a worry in the sense of I'm concerned, I don't know what's going to happen. It's more so to compel you again to start making some moves now for your loved one. We also highlight the qualities. I love that part where, usually you're hearing about all the negative things, the things that your child or loved one is unable to do. We focus on what they're able to do and how much they inspire you as a caregiver, as a loved one. Also, it's an opportunity to recognize who else can I bring into this conversation? Family members, friends, a religious organization, people that's in part of your religious organization. How can I align them with the goal that you have for your loved one?
The only thing I would add to that is Sean facilitates this part of the series usually. And one thing that he does very gracefully is invites families not just to tell their stories, but to recognize that their stories intertwine. So from the very beginning, we spend a lot of time on introductions. Tell us your story, talk about your loved one, and then see how they intertwine and how they connect. So from that first set, it's not a typical session, right? It's a session about connection, and we really focus on that. The hopes and worries, saying that out loud, as you can imagine, families share some of the same worries, right? They share some of the same hopes, and that's that trajectory tool that we use. We learned about the session previous, but really, if you're doing your planning and you're heading towards your worries, that's the type of plan you're going to develop. If you're doing planning for the future and you're heading towards your hopes, then that's how it's going to be a hopeful journey. So we really get people on that page. We get them to really connect with one another, and that connection sustained throughout the 4 sessions and beyond, which Sean can talk about. I will say at the end of each session too, we also, you mentioned this, but we have a structure to it because it's important. It's important to kind of loop back around to the work that we're doing together. And we say, what can you do now to take steps towards your hopes? What can you do now and over the next weeks to make sure that your worries won't happen? And who else can you share it with so that you're not doing this alone? We ask that after each session. It provides kind of a beginning and an end to each session, right? So the next session, we revisit that and say, what did you think about between that session and the second session to help them continue to feel like it's a continuous journey. So that's that work around the hopes and worries. This is a video I don't think is going to work. I'm afraid to try it. So, but this is Anne and Karen, and that second session we do is really, really core, and it's about strengthening and expanding social networks. That's really the work. Like we have this whole series of conversations around sustainability. All the worries we collectively carry around that. And when you really think about it, the most important thing is connection. The most important thing is intentionally creating and sustaining personal networks. That's where the work is. I mean, our work's around that, but that's the core. And if we know that, we are as sustainable as any community, right? If you think about like the stories we heard this morning, how many people were in that first session this morning, right? So you heard those stories about connection. This family up here, Anne and Karen, have a long story to tell. I'd encourage you, if you get a chance, to look at their story that's attached here. What they talk about is how tough it is, right? So how tough it is to begin to ask others to be part of their loved one's life. So Anne does not communicate using words. She loves poetry. She loves animals. She loves her family. And so her mom has been on this journey, very much like the folks that we heard this morning, about drawing people in on common interests, drawing people in on gifts, and expanding her social network beyond graduation. Graduation oftentimes feels like a cliff. This is a way, and the mom really talks so articulately about like how that journey is. Another point that I hear from her is, sometimes people fall off. Sometimes you ask people to get involved and they say no, or they don't live up to what you would hope. And other times people surprise you. So it really is kind of a journey, and it's very organic. And she talks so articulately about that. Anything you want to add?
I do. Actually, another thing about this is that the families that are on the call, they fail to realize sometimes that that's the start of the networking with one another.
Yeah.
they start to see like, oh, wow, we have so much in common. Maybe can I share my number with you, my email with you? And so we remind them that this is not just an opportunity for future planning, but it's also an opportunity for you to really start connecting with one another. And I would tell you, we just got finished doing Futures Down on Wednesday, this past Wednesday. We had a total of 4 families, and then really well, and they had unique backgrounds. We had one from China, one from India, Jewish woman from Brooklyn, and I tell you, she is from Brooklyn. Um, and a family actually that's getting ready to leave Michigan and move down to Ohio. So they're like really stressed out right now. But after meeting everyone on this call, I could tell you their stress levels are really diminished because now they feel like, wow, we have a network, we have a community of people that we're getting ready to be in contact with.
I mean, that's such a good point. So it really is a place to practice too. You know, it doesn't feel as risky when you're practicing somebody you've already shared your story with. So that's yeah. And so after, during this session, I meant to say, we also do, and we've all seen this before with that personal network. So that idea of the circles of support for a snapshot. So it's meant to say, who's in your life right now, right? Who's in your inner circle, kind of medial circle, who's your weak tie? So we do this exercise and have people look at it right now. We ask them to say, what do you see in that circle that's a strength? So where are you, feeling strong? What's the place that you stand that you feel strength? And what are some areas of growth? So it helps begin to think about, how do I bring people closer to the center? Where is somebody that might be a weak tie we want to move towards the middle? So we had that discussion, and it's really powerful. It's also, Shauna and I talk, is very emotional. So this work is where it's the hardest questions that keep parents up at night. So we're really cracking that open and having really tough discussions. And sometimes people's circles seem pretty sparse. Sometimes people's circle, I don't know if anybody has experienced this, where it's just the family member, right? And that can feel really scary. But if you're doing that with other people and you're brainstorming ideas, and we give them lots of ideas about how to strengthen that, it feels hopeful eventually.
And you have to also recognize, like, sometimes you have to do that one-on-one with them and help them explore their options. Because, like, for instance, we had one family, it was just the grandparents and their granddaughter, no one else, but they belong to a church. And we explored that with them, like, who's at your church that you're really connected with? And they start really saying, oh, wow, we have people at our church that are really invested in our daughter or granddaughter. So sometimes sitting down and just getting people to recognize what's in front of them, what's in their environment, what's in their community. And it really helps.
Thank you. Absolutely. And the other thing we do is the video that we didn't show, but I just summarized for you. We show that to families because it's really important that we bring families' voices into the room. Yep. Not our voices, families' voices. It is, like we always say, an honor for us to even be in the room with these folks, right? But the family member and their wisdom. So we share somebody who's further on the path, like Ann and Karen, and then we ask the families, what stands out for you? So what about their journey stands out for you? And what do you think resonates? I was going to ask you, what do you think resonates with family members? It really is that there's intentional, it's a journey, it's work. It can feel tough, and it's also extremely hopeful and rewarding. And that's usually what comes out.
It does.
Would you say, yeah?
Absolutely. So again, going back to a story that's connected with this, strengthening the inner circle. So it was a family I was working with. They had a paid DSP, okay, direct service provider. And she did her work. She liked doing her work, but she became so connected with this family's child. And this child, again, non-speaking, non-verbal. She became so connected with them that the family said, well, why don't you just bring in paid support? Can we bring you into our inner circle? And she said, yeah, sure. She obliged. And I'm telling you, the relationship that this DSP worker has with the advocate is just truly amazing. I mean, to the point where she knows when she's upset. She knows when she's happy. She just knows everything about her, and it's genuine. It's organic. It's not something like, okay, I'm just getting a paycheck and I'm out of here. It's like, no, I'm invested, to the point where they was inviting her over for their holidays, meals, and everything like that, and it went really well. So it just shows that someone that may be considered a weak tie, someone that's not really connected to inner circle, you can bring them in. Again, it takes a lot of courage to do that. It takes a lot. We talked about that in the keynote this morning. Sometimes that's scary to invite someone into your situation because you're thinking, I'm going to cause them a burden. They're not going to want to be bothered with this, but you'll be surprised how many people out here really want to be involved in your situation and want to be an assistant. I mean, I think back in the day, 60s, 70s, people had more of this community approach. I think we're more siloed now as a nation. And I think that we need to break away from that and go back to those grassroots and really be that support, as we talked about this morning with the keynote speaker.
Absolutely. And that's what sustainability, when we think about that, those words, you know, and we talk about what you can do now. You talked about strengthening that inner circle, clarifying the role of paid staff. Sometimes staff do become friends, right? But not always. And we know that. So clarifying that role, you know, making sure we build the family network intentionally, and then growing more weak ties. You know, we talk about that. We had a family member say, when you're asking somebody if they want to come in and do something, be part of your family proper, it takes 15 seconds of outrageous courage. That's what this family member said. 15 seconds of outrageous courage to take that step and do that. And most of the time people will say yes, right? Most of the time they will say yes. All right. And you were talking about.
Oh, yeah. So back in 2022, I was doing Future Is Now, and Chanel and Jamie, they were part of Future Is Now, and they really became bonded with one another to the point where Jamie, I guess she had some limitations when it came to finding resources to help out our children. And Chanel was just like, you know what, I'll take care of it for you, whatever you need to do. So she was able to really encourage her to do what she needed to do to get the waiver and everything like that to help her out. And I'm telling you, it just really shows how when they come together, when these families come together, that's a true and legitimate connection. And they were calling each other. And I remember Chanel one time called me on behalf of Jamie, like, hey, Jamie gave me her consent to talk to you about a situation that's going on. How can you help? Which is wonderful. Almost become like an advocate. So it just shows that when we're doing Futurists now, it's not just, again, like I said before, it's not about just future planning. It's also about bringing forth that connection, bringing forth that community.
And we're belaboring the second session, but because there's so much packed into it, right? There's so much emotion packed into it with this. This next story really is about sort of the opposite, right? And so we talk about family members where you have an assumption. So this is Mike was the dad. He has one brother. He's got one son. His one brother is the uncle is the only relative for Christopher, right? Lives nearby. And when we were talking at Futures Now, he was saying, well, of course, my younger brother is going to take care of Christopher. And, when he was really thinking about it, and we were talking about like you looking at his map, and he had himself and Christopher and his brother there. He really was not connected. Like they actually didn't like each other. He finally said that they don't like each other, right? There isn't that emotional bond, but his brother is really great at finances. Really good at that. Totally, that would be his jam. So we talk about like there's a slice of the pie. Like nobody's going to replace Mike, who is a single dad. Nobody's going to take it all. But that's a slice of the pie. So have your brother do that piece. Make it super clear that that's his role, and then look to fill the other roles. Like how else can you wrap other people around? Again, church always comes into the play when discussion, but they began to reconnect with their church. That began to fill the circle in a different way. So it really is that creativity, being clear about roles, being clear about who's the strengths in someone's circle, and building that over time, because this is a journey. It's another theme of this. Okay.
Can we show this a video or not?
I don't know. I don't know if it's going to work.
We can
okay.
try. It's a really good video.
It's like raising my anxiety level, but these videos.
Go back. I have to go back.
One thing we do is, we show lots of videos during the session, so we have a point of discussion and bringing families into the room.
I don't want to pull out there.
So this is the Dunford family, and we bring in that third session is really resource heavy. So we've had a lot of emotional, we have connection, session 1, sort of thinking about your network. Then session 3 is really about like, what does my SSA do? What about benefits? What about housing? So we dip our toes in depending on what the families are interested in. So we sort of modify it. That third section, we always have SSA in there because people always have questions about SSA. But then we also talk, yeah.
Just check it. We have a townhouse
this
and a
volume
condo.
thing?
Joey and I live in the townhouse, and Michelle and Alex lives in the condo. And our
You can
doors.
just have it in the background. I'm going to narrate. How about that? Because this family is really, they're the Dunford. So they had a house with these two guys.
So we're on the
All
same.
right.
level.
Those are their children. And is anybody familiar with the housing voucher system in Ohio? Never sure, like how it's a mystery. People's names come up. Chase, you could probably talk about it. But they got the opportunity to have a housing voucher. They were able to sell their house pretty quickly. They bought a condo, and you'll see that the rooms are right next to each other. And she's showing you her place. And she and her brother both have developmental disabilities, and they set it up so that they could live side by side, right? So that they could have housing side by side. They talked about the stable account, using the stable account. They talked about using benefits for the rent, and how excited their children were to have that, and that it felt sustainable, right? So what we're trying to do in these conversations is think about benefits, but have them think about it creatively too, right? Because our system offers some traditional things. We try to think about creative housing options. We have a housing options guide that we go through. So all that is like a way to help them think creatively about what might we plan over the next several years, and what might we explore. And that's one of our challenges during this session.
So they both pay.
Anything you want to add?
Out of pocket and stuff like
Okay.
I'll let you.
So it was
got it.
interesting when we get the mail and Alex has a
Can't see the thing, get it down. Nope. There. Okay. Okay. Okay, so when we do this, we ask the families again, what did you hear in this story? So what strikes them usually? And what strikes them usually is, gosh, there's a lot more options than I thought. And I have time to think about this. And it's smart to think about it now rather than later. Some of these things, housing options take time to set up. So they think about that. And anything you want to add?
Yeah, absolutely. This gives families a really great opportunity to explore, go into like what options are out there for me. I remember one gentleman I was working with, he said, he asked me, Sean, can I just convert my current home into pretty much a group home facility where my daughter and other people can live? I was like, sure, if you want to. I mean, this is so many things that people can do now. And I think sometimes from the past, people just think that they just have one option when there's like a plethora of options now. So it gives families an opportunity. I would say a lot of times there's no blame on the families. What's happening is because the right now is so immediate, families don't have the time to think about planning. They don't have the time to think about what other options are out there, because what's happening this minute right now is more important. Legitimately. So I think that's what happens sometimes. So it's good to have times like this to schedule information like this for families to be like, okay, there are options out here. We can do something different. So just want to throw that in there.
Saying that. And at the end of the session, we ask those questions again, which are like, what is your intention? What small things, what steps can you take right now? And then who can you bring along, right? So who do you need to invite into the conversation? And usually by this point, we'll see other family members on the calls, right? We'll say, people will reflect back even on the previous session and say, I began to talk to my daughter about this. I began to talk to my neighbor about this. So they're beginning to share it. It just invites them to continue to recognize they're not alone. They don't need to do this by themselves. It is work that you can't do by yourself. It is about community building.
Okay. All right. So we've modified some things. We've implemented the covenant of support, which is assessed here. Covenant of support is a community of friends and families committed to routinely involved in the life of loved ones with disabilities. It was created by a family, Marsha Phillips. She's not here today, but she's amazing. She's actually a part of our Future is Now series we just got finished doing. And I'll tell you that it's a great opportunity for families who are in Future is Now to segue into covenant of supports, because it's almost like a continuation of how to build community around your loved one, how to formalize that. So rather than having your person and they have people that's coming in and out of their life, rather than doing that, let's formalize that. Let's create a group. And that's what covenant support is about. It's an actual group of people who are invested in you as a family member and your loved one and say, like, hey, I'm going to commit my time and efforts along with you to serve and best find out what's good for your child or your loved one. So it was really, really remarkable. Should I go ahead and move forward?
There's that second conversation that we have, so that's session. So we're returning back to that and saying, what practical tools can we give people, give these families to begin to work on to create community around their loved one?
Absolutely.
And this is another video. It really is about, this is, if you get a chance, when you go back to your office or not office, go click on this video in general. It's a 23-minute, not this one, but there's 23 minutes of that story. And it's the origin of a 20+ year covenant. So this is a person that thought of this idea and helped us think about how can we offer practical tools so other people can do the same thing. When we watch this video with families, she's a rock star. So people will say, well, she's a rock star. I don't see myself. She is not, like we talked about this morning, she's not a unicorn. It just takes some support along the way. And so that's really what we've tried to develop. So we didn't introduce it and change Futures Now to include this until we had some supports in place. So we're not just saying, go on and do, you know what I mean? You can't do that. The work is too hard. It's too emotional. And when you think about what's the county board, like what can we do?
Yeah.
We can help create the space for this, provide some mentorship, do some work around that so that it doesn't feel so scary. And they can do it together because they're having conversations about it in a safe space. They're already friends, right? Like you talked about. So this just talks about the beginning, a Mark's covenant. It's ironic because we have a former covenant member right there. Yeah. Okay. So but please watch the video if you can. All right. So, really the basics of it, we give people one pagers so that they have information and then we walk with them through it. But, the basics is really why are we doing this? Create a purpose. So what's the purpose of creating a community of people around my loved one that's sustained over time, that becomes like family? So what is your personal purpose statement about that? Thinking about who might be potential members, we've already done that map. Like we did that snapshot. So we've got a good start on that already, right? That's a tool. The next step would be meet with members. Okay. So schedule time to meet and to invite folks. If I were to, channel Marcia, she would say, have food for your first meeting. Like how we know that's kind of like a family thing. Like think about all the ways we have food together at Thanksgiving. You have food together at these meetings. It's a celebration. You want the folks that are part of the covenant or the circle of support to connect with one another. Like they're creating connections with one another around a common love of the person that is a focused person. She would say too that, pass around, they do very old school, pass around a calendar. We've had other covenants that we're starting where we say, do a sign up, genius, but pass around a calendar so that everybody that's there celebrating together, getting to know one another with the focus of the person and supporting the loved one. They want to come in to their life and do things. So there has to be that practical step. And that's the ask that's really, really hard for families to do. That's that step of like, oh, I feel vulnerable because I'm asking someone to be in my loved one's life. And it works. And it becomes a sense of community like you would visit another family member. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. And it doesn't have to mirror, like what happens is one time before I sent out the video, the 22-minute video of Marcia and her covenant with Monk. And it discouraged a parent because she's like, I can't mirror this. It doesn't have to mirror. It doesn't have to mirror at all. And as a mentor, I kind of sped up there, but as a mentor, you're supposed to help the family. And it may take a while. I'm working with families that I've introduced to this over a year ago, and they're still trying to embrace this. And they have family support. Some of them do not. But this is about helping them build it. It doesn't have to mirror what Marcia has established, because each covenant that we've engaged, they're uniquely different. You can even, the last one we went to, he named it from covenant to support to circle of support. So yeah, it doesn't have to mirror Marcia's in particular.
Thank you for saying that. It's super important. I will say, just to finish up, because I'm feeling anal now, that last bit is really making sure, like, you pass around the calendar, but then there's that follow up with visit reminders and the time for the next gathering. These are like super simple steps. Like it seems like, well, that's not, That's not brain surgery, but having that down and having a plan can be very helpful to somebody who's feeling very emotionally vulnerable about asking, right? And it gives like a kind of a way to go, but that can be customized depending on the person. And that last piece about sustainability, right? So it's like a big question. So how do you make sure we're talking some folks are older adults that are carrying that question? What's going to happen when I'm not here? What's going to happen to the covenant when I'm no longer able to manage the covenant as a parent? So very early on, we encourage parents to think about who's going to share that, like who's going to, share some of these tasks of gathering people together. And it's really important to do that, and they don't feel alone, right? So, with Mark's covenant of 20 plus years, she has two other people sharing the leadership responsibility. So one thing we're asking people is kind of, once you get started, begin to think about that. Like begin to think about who's going to shine in that role. Again, pieces of the pie. Like some people might visit and spend time with your loved one. Other people really might want to take that leadership role. So it's something to think about.
Kendall, okay, I'll let you go.
So Kendall's covenant or circle of support. So Kendall is in her early 20s and she lives with her parents. And they went through Futures Now, and we invited them to consider doing a covenant. And of course, it's scary. Like felt very emotional. So it took a little time for them to begin to think, yeah, this is something. It started by setting 3 goals. So we talked about that purpose, set the purpose. So their purpose with Kendall is independence, good health, and connection, right? So those were the things that they said, these are the important things that we want to achieve. It was really hard for the mom to ask people to come. And she said the first couple, ask people that are going to say yes. So she asked her mom and she asked her husband's mom. And of course they said yes. And she said each time she asked somebody to come, it was easier, right? Every time she asked, and nobody said no. Of course, there's always that fear. Marcia would say, it's fear, like you're rejecting not just me, but you're rejecting my loved one. And that hurts, right? But in general, people will say yes. They had a huge gathering with lots of food. There were old teachers. There was a fitness instructor that was there. There were neighbors. There were people that Kendall had known from school. So kind of pulling those people together. So that first gathering was awesome. What didn't happen in the first gathering is they didn't ask people to sign up because it's too scary. And I get that. So, part of the mentor role is afterwards we said, you might want to send out a sign up genius, make sure that people are coming to visit and making that organized. So they're working on that. That's tough. But they're doing that. The big step that just happened, and this is a year into it, the goal for Kendall, for her parents, is that she will move out into an apartment. She has a level 1 waiver. She's got lots of other support. She could continue to have a level 1 waiver and be okay. But she's very attached to her parents. So living in an apartment is, for them, thought that's never going to happen. It's going to be really scary. This is her in her new apartment.
Yeah.
Where she's only spending a little bit of time. So they're kind of inching their way. And that's one way to transition. But she's got a big smile, right? And she's got people that are visiting her. So they're practicing like her having people over for dinner, right? So her spending the night there for the first time, things like that. So it really is like, it's one of those budding covenant or circles of support that we feel like super proud. And it happened because they started with the big questions at Futures Now, and they stuck with us through the whole process.
Yes, they have. And they send us these group text messages letting us know, giving us updates on how things are going. So like, for instance, you can also create like a group meet or anything like that, just to keep the covenant members abreast of what's going on.
And Dad's a huge nerd. He's a P&G guy.
Yes.
And so he has PowerPoints. So as everybody eats and then they sit in the living room and they watch this huge PowerPoint, it's all, well organized and stuff, but it's unique to them, right? It's their comfort and it's awesome. Yeah.
And Matt.
Yeah, Matt is this is a very new covenant. And we'll talk a little bit about the mentor piece, but the why now, mom is really connected. She is actually in the field. And so she's done a lot of pre-work. Matt has a wonderful life. He lives on his own with roommates. He has a great job. He's got a great social life, but now he's moving to a new neighborhood. He's moving with new roommates. It's a big transition time, right? So she is wanting to do this, right? So she wants to do this with her son. But the difference is Matt can do this on his own. Like he can start like with all the kind of ideas that we have. He's the leader of this in a way, right? So the difference is instead of the parents initiating it, Matt's really doing this. So we're preparing to start with that. We'll have to have an update at some point, but yes, so Matt's leadership is really what I wanted to emphasize here.
Oh yeah, so this is my first covenant that I work with the Janine family. The father actually took charge, and he was a lawyer, and so rather than having like people within his immediate family or anything like that, he involved his church family, and it was amazing. Everyone was on the same. Everybody's on the same accord. It was just it was a wonderful experience. They had the food.
Yeah.
It was just really great, and it just shows how it doesn't have to mirror. Again, it doesn't have to be like everyone else's. They're completely different. They're a strong Christian family, and they have a lot of good Christian friends with them, and so it went really well. And he, again, just like the other father, he did everything. Mom, it was nice to see mom just sit back and relax and let dad just, take charge and do what he needed to do.
This is for a young guy, right?
Yeah, he's this young guy, he's like around 13, 14. 13, yeah.
What's striking is it could be at any phase, right? It's so it's when the family's ready to do the work. Earlier is even better, right? So, but they carry the same questions. We all stay up at night for the same reasons, but it just feels just more urgent when folks are older, when you have older parents.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, and so this is about membership. We'll just skip the video. Okay. So good advice for the long term. So this is another thing that we share with families. We want to have practical tools for families around something that's hard to do again. So again, keeping in touch with members between meetings. So email, text, phone calls, we talked about that. Always making sure that the covenant meeting allows time for friendships, right? So it doesn't have to, it's not a business meeting. You're not coming into the house and, like we're going to get to it. You're going to eat, get to know one another. You're there for common interest and love, and then you begin to form bonds with each other. And then being sensitive to members' needs by staying within the meeting time frame. So we don't really want to, it's kind of like the connection time and then, updates on what's going on with your loved one's life. But you don't want to say, let's be here for 5 hours. People are very busy. So making sure that we're honoring that, making sure that you meet regularly. There has to be a rhythm to it. And then since change is inevitable, keep inviting new members. So built into this, there has to be that expectation that you're going to continue to invite folks. It's organic. You think about your own friendship circles, right? So, people come and go, right? People come in and out. Some people you don't want to come in at all. But, one of the moms was saying that she viewed the circle as her living room, her back porch, across the street, for week ties. And some people you want to keep across the street. Yeah. Some people you want to invite in from outside. So, but just knowing that change is inevitable with new members. And then also include staff. So somebody has staff. It's a model that also invites people to come in and give staff support and also do some monitoring, honestly, because they're coming in and checking out like you would any other friends. So people sign up to come visit, but you want to be supportive of staff because they have an important role if you have staff.
Thank you, Ryan, for that picture. I was 20 pounds lighter. Then this is not I really can't close this. So when it comes to being a mentor, it's really just helping the family get started so we have a sheet, and it's how to get started sheet. And so, believe it or not, I'm so grateful. I'm so happy right now. I could dance. Have 3 covenants I'm starting this week. I've been engaged with them. They've been calling me, and they're familiar families, and one family is actually unfamiliar. But just walking them through the process, each step. It doesn't matter what questions that they have. As a mentor, you're just supposed to be there with them and walk them through it, no matter whatever questions they have, what they need to do, and give them options. Some families are not comfortable with doing it in their home. So like there's one mother I talked to, she said, I don't want to do it in my home. Is there anywhere else I can do it? So now we're exploring those options. If we could do it somewhere in the community that she's familiar with, maybe her local church. So being a mentor just really is plugging in, staying with them, and being able to answer whatever questions and concerns they have. Is you're going on a journey with this family. You can't just, hey, here's the sheet. work it out and you carry on. They can't do that. You have to work with them. And so we have myself, we have Christina Hamburg, who's also another family engagement coordinator, much better looking. We also have Jamie, and we have Susie Booker.
Yes.
And so we have and Marsha,
Like 3 community members.
yes.
I think.
And it's just fabulous. So we share. We had one from Michigan, a family from Michigan, a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, it's moving. So we're getting the thing. It's moving along, but being a mentor again is just really just staying plugged in with the family and making sure that you walk them through the process.
Yeah, it starts off with coffee, right? Like
It does.
We have coffee with them, and it's nice to have, again, we talked about what's the county board's role. Like we have a role in helping start, like we have county board folks, but we also have folks that are community members that are just loving this, really want to commit to this model, right? And so they are having coffee with people and beginning that journey directed by the way the family wants to do it with some tenets that we know work. So it really is like, that's the magic. It's in the connection with the folks and listening to how the family wants it to roll as well. So yeah. Okay. So this is our contact information. The resources at the top, when you see it, that's all the videos I wanted to show so badly and talk about. But the future is now. Information's up there. It has all the links to the housing videos and things like that, and the personal network. Covenant and Support link has a link to how to refer. So we made it a little more formal in that people can contact Sean directly. He's our point person, and then he kind of distributes them to mentors. But then also the videos up there too. So please take a look at that. I think it's good material, and to share with folks as well, that as you think of families that might be interested.
All right, great. Do we have any questions? Comments? Any thoughts? Yes.
I really love this model and how it not just supports the youth, but supports the family through the process. Just curious, how did you get started?
Well, I would say with the Future is Now, we had a DD Council grant. And so we've been doing that for years. But with the Covenant, we've and you can add to this, of course, but like as we were listening to families, the most important thing, more than the resources, because we do give them a lot of resources, more than that is like, how do I do this work? And so like we wanted something concrete to walk with them afterwards. And that's how we got involved. We've been working with Marsha. I mean, she's had that model for a long time. And she was also very interested in that as a parent, as an older parent, as I want more people to do this. And I want to scale it somehow, right? I don't want to be the only one in Cincinnati. So, that was her commitment to it. And we were trying to like, how can we do this? Like, what ways can we make it possible? So that's how we got into it. Plus, it's tremendously rewarding. So, when we're doing other things that feel like so heavy, right? And these are heavy questions, but it also feels great. Like you're doing something that you can do now with families.
And there's also an opportunity for people who do have waivers, right? But their loved ones still don't have any friends, don't have any people that they're connected with in their community. So it's like a part two. Okay, you have your waiver, great. Now let's build a community around you as well. So that was another approach, another thought, because we get that a lot. I knew the gentleman up in Lake County we were working with, and he did Future Is Now with us, and he reported he has twins, and he reported like, hey, we have 2 IO waivers, but we don't have any family. So, put some perspective there in a sense of like you have the funding, but at the same time, you still need that support.
And a lot of people don't have, like 50% of the folks don't have funding. And so it's another valuable tool for really anybody.
Yep.
You think about it too, like I think about seniors, you think about folks that require additional support and oversight, and it can be used in lots of different ways. So yeah, thanks for the question.
I have a question. So for our county boards that are smaller county boards who maybe just have SSAs who are working with families, can you talk about kind of how that SSA can work specifically with that family? And also, do you partner with other county boards to kind of help them walk through that process and understand what that should look like?
Yeah, well, I think for smaller county boards, I think that the mentor role doesn't have to be huge, right? So if a SSA were working with a family and they wanted to explore this. They kept carrying that question. I want to connect. They can use any of these materials. We're happy to support that too. The first step, it takes 23 minutes. is to sit down with a family and watch the video together and talk about it. So that could be a visit, right? And then it would be like thinking about, and we could help with this, but thinking about how your current map looks, like what does your personal map look, and then go from there. Because it really is, again, like organic, and we play the least important role. It's just a matter of getting started. And we're always happy, you know, we've done this with Futures Now, but we're always happy to work with any county for either of these Futures Now Covenant work.
Yeah, we did stuff with Butler, with Claremont. Now they do it uniquely different from us. We even Franklin, they sat in and did Futures Now, and it's like, okay, this is how you do it, and they may modify it, tweak it for what best works for them. But yeah, it could work for anyone, for any county. Great question.
Other questions? I see a hand. I see a hand on the other side. No. Okay, well, let's give them a round of applause.